What's up, guys? Welcome to the newsletter. Great to have you back here. If you are watching this and you're not currently subscribed to the newsletter, you can get your copy by subscribing right here, or you can go in the description of this video and there'll be a link for you to subscribe as well. You get a lot of cool stuff. In addition to being directed to this video every week, you also get extras that come in the actual emails that you get for being a subscriber that I do not include in the description of the video. So newsletter is a great place to be. It's a one-on-one relationship. And at any time, if you hit reply to those emails, you get me directly, which is great. So let's get to the newsletter itself. I want to thank all of you for watching. I love that you are willing to give me your time and your attention. I respect that. And it's why I do the table of contents, which is below. If you want to skip ahead or go back to parts, go down to the first comment of this video and you will get the table of contents, which allows you to click and auto jump to wherever you want in the video itself. I do that because I respect your time and I know you may not want to listen to every piece of this. I did it for the first time on the last newsletter, got a tremendous amount of positive feedback, so we're gonna keep doing that because it just seems like the right thing to do. All right, a couple housekeeping notes first. If you are a subscriber to the newsletter, I am now giving everyone who subscribes to the newsletter a free PDF or EPUB copy of my book, Content Warfare. We're coming up on the 5-year anniversary of that book. And while the book has tremendous value, and I'm not trying to diminish that value by giving it away for free, the physical copy, the physical copy you can buy on Amazon, it's like $10. But the ebook, I want subscribers, people who want a deeper relationship with me. I want you to have a copy of that book if you don't. So if you subscribe by email, you get a free copy of Content Warfare. That's number one, because I think that book, the core concepts of that book stand up to the test of time. And 5 years later, I'm still teaching many of those core concepts. And a lot of the stories, anecdotes, case studies included in that book are well worth your time. I do reference Google Plus in that book, which no longer exists today, so it is 5 years old. But even the Google Plus section, if you read the concepts that I was talking about inside of Google Plus and you just replace Google Plus with LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, it is completely applicable today. The framework for telling your story, finding your audience, and attracting attention online, all of that transcends. It's applicable today as it was 5 years ago, regardless of the platform that you're using. So I wanted to make that note. Another note, if you go to ryanhanley.com/speaking, I'll have a link right here. And I'll also have a link down below in the description. You can download my 2020 speaking deck. If you're not looking to hire a speaker or you're not interested in an on-site workshop for your business or your organization, then, outside of just wanting to see it, it doesn't really do you a lot of good. But if you are interested in a speaker, if you are looking for someone to come in and do keynote and a breakout, which is actually my preferred way to go, or a full day or 2-day workshop on leadership, sales, marketing, and how we mash all those things together to kick ass, then go to ryanhanley.com/speaking and download my 2020 speaking deck. You get basically all the core information you need about hiring me as a speaker for your organization or event, and then how to reach out. We can connect, we can talk, and start to game plan if I am the right speaker for your organization. But just want to let you know, ryanhanley.com/speaking, you can download my speaking deck. Next piece of business. Why am I dressed up? I thought that was important because I'm oftentimes, since I work out of my home, I'm in like a sweatshirt, especially because it's wintertime in upstate New York. And today I'm in a dress shirt. I have a really big consulting proposal in about an hour, sitting down with a client that I would really like to get. This would be a core client for the next 12 months that would be a vital part of my business and I would be a vital part of their business. And I am incredibly excited about delivering that proposal. My wife said to me this morning, how do you feel? Because I've had this appointment for 2 weeks now. And I said, I'm scared that they're going to say yes, and I'm scared that they're going to say no. And she thought that was funny, but it's true. Once someone says yes to your proposal, you have to deliver. And as much as I feel incredibly confident that I will deliver, I am also nervous that I have to deliver, because you have to deliver. That's what makes you a professional. So I just thought I'd share that with you, maybe because I have so much nervous energy and it might seem weird to you if you've watched a lot of the recent videos and I'm wearing a collared shirt. But the core of this work is a lot of what I've been talking about, specifically on LinkedIn and Twitter, which is contextual advertising. How do we dial into a set of constituencies that are core to the business? And this company, which is actually in the financial services space, they have a very target market that they want to go after, that they absolutely crush, that is they can do really solid, positive work for, and also is a very productive part of their business. And they want me to come in and help them dial in on that. And that is exactly what I do from a consulting standpoint. And I just kind of really want this project to work. I want to get the project, and I want it to work because I believe in the company, I believe in the guy who runs the company, and I believe in the work itself. And also, if it works, it'll be a great case study for speaking and future workshops. And also, it puts some coconut in my bank account, which is fun too. Last piece of business before we get to the core content of today's newsletter is I did 2 interviews. I published 2 interviews on the podcast this week. If you're not listening to the podcast, I would recommend at least these 2 episodes this week. If you're just one-offs, if you don't like to subscribe or whatever. It's with Joe Pulizzi. Joe is the founder of the Content Marketing Institute. He's written 5 best-selling books on content marketing. He's often referred to as the Godfather of content marketing because he founded Content Marketing World. It is the pinnacle of the content marketing world. It's in the name of the title, but like the ecosystem, I guess, not to define the term with the term. 2,500 to 3,000 content marketers come together, the best in the business, sharing ideas. And he recently sold that business after being in it for more than a decade, and is now writing thriller novels. But what's really interesting is he's taking more than a decade's worth of experience in content marketing and applying it to being a fiction author, and it's really, really interesting stuff. This is I was just really happy with the way this interview came out, because it was a very organic conversation that delivered a tremendous amount of value. And Joe is just a wonderful guy. And if you're not connected with him, I think that you should follow him in spaces, whatever spaces you like to frequent. He has a newsletter, which would be great for you to subscribe to if you want to. But I just thought that conversation was awesome. And then I followed that up this week with a conversation with a guy by the name of Scott Monty. Scott was the very first head of digital communications and social media at the Ford Motor Company. He's also an incredibly deep thinker and has one of the best newsletters in the leadership business marketing space. It's called Timeless and Timely, and we dive into, in particular, the difference between eternal content and ethereal content, and where we feel like the world is today and where it's going, and how you, the listeners, can position your business or your personal brand to take advantage of understanding the dynamics of eternal versus ethereal content. And really, that's kind of short form versus long form, I guess, if we were to put it in more common parlance. But that conversation, just one of my favorites that I've had so far in this iteration of the podcast, because Scott is a thoughtful guy and he gives very thoughtful answers, and we are able to address some topics that are probably slightly, I think, if I were talking to someone less thoughtful, could have been prone to hyperbole or a level of shallowness that would have lacked value, but instead we were able to really get into some meaty stuff, and it was tremendously fun. So if you listen, wherever you listen to podcasts, I'll have a link again in the description. You can click on that link and find your favorite way to subscribe to the podcast. If you're not, those 2 interviews this week were absolutely, from my perspective, they were some of my best work as an interviewer, and what I had on the other end of the line were 2 people who were very willing to go down the path with me. And I think what came out were very valuable pieces of content that hopefully you, if you are part of the podcast audience, enjoy. So you can get those, like I said, in the description. You can click on them if you're already subscribed. That just maybe make the time to listen to that. And I appreciate all of you who are subscribed to the podcast. I love doing it. So let's now transition into the actual content of the newsletter. And for this part of the newsletter, I wanted to, I just talked about the interviews that I did with Joe Pulizzi and Scott Monty. But this iteration of the podcast, and I keep saying this iteration of the podcast, I've had 3 podcasts in my life. I had Content Warfare, which was my first podcast, which has done almost 300,000 downloads to this point. The podcast is still live. You can still listen to all the old episodes all the way back to episode 1, my very first podcast ever from 2012 or 2013, where I was literally driving home in the car and just I think I was coming from a speaking engagement in New Jersey or something, and I just popped open my cell phone and started talking into the cell phone and recorded it on the cell phone. And then, you can hear the humming of the road behind me, and I had no idea how to edit, and I just pushed it out there. And that was episode 1 of Content Warfare. You can listen to that if you want, if you're interested in that at all. All the way up, I think I did somewhere close to 200 odd episodes of that show. And actually, if you're subscribed to that, I push the new episodes out to that feed just to do it because I don't know. People are still subscribed and still listening, so that's that. My second podcast that I had was actually when I was working at Agency Nation. That was Agency Nation Radio. If you work in the insurance industry, it's very likely that that's where you found me from a podcast standpoint. The conversations I was having with Marty Agather, and then we started doing a lot of interviews. And then when Marty was let go from Agency Nation and Trusted Choice, I kind of transitioned that show into calling it the Ryan Hanley Show or something. I'm not very creative when it comes to titles of things. But it was the same feed, and did a lot of interviews with some really awesome insurance people for that show. And then I was let go from Agency Nation, which happens. And I didn't have a podcast for about a year. And when I first... about this spring, I just decided that I love talking to people. I love interviewing people. I love having conversations and with dynamic people from all different walks of life. And we're gonna have a fitness instructor slash. She wants to talk about healthy eating, and we're going to really dive into some stuff around the anti-inflammatory diet, and I want to ask her about lectins, and I have some questions for her about some stuff, and she's actually local here, and she has a health food shop, so I'm going to have her on the podcast pretty soon, and I want to talk to people. I want to talk to some people about I have a bunch of different topics and things. I'm trying to get someone from the IDW on, either Eric Weinstein or, God, I'd love to interview Jordan Peterson, although that's probably like asking Jesus at this point to come on your podcast. He has so many requests, but I have so many different people that I want to talk to, and I just want to share those conversations with you. And what I found in this iteration of the podcast is that I feel like I've reached a style of interviewing that I personally enjoy the most. It feels the most organic and natural to me, and what I've realized is that there's two ways of interviewing. There's interviewing to get to a place, and there's interviewing without a place in mind. So what I've realized in this iteration of the podcast is that there's two main ways of interviewing. There's interviewing when you know the path that you want to go on. Like, I'm going to start here and ask a series of questions that takes me to this place over here. And if I get there, I will consider that a success. And then there's another way of interviewing, which is more like a choose your own adventure book. And I'm going to tell you that my personal opinion is, that the first way is boring. It's easy to package, and there are a lot of people that have shows where it's just like, I'm going to ask you everyone the same 5 questions, and and we're going to rifle them off, and you're going to hear interesting answers. And I don't find that interesting at all. Asking the same questions of people. Now, I will put a caveat on this that Tim Ferriss does this thing where he basically has a regular interview, and at the end, he has 2 or 3 questions that he asks every guest. I think that's interesting because making it just like a segment at the end provides you with the opportunity to compare answers from people. But what he does that I think is brilliant, and this is maybe one element of consistency I want to add into my own podcast, is he gets their creative juices flowing first before he asks them those standardized questions that they most likely know are already coming and they have an answer to. So he's not getting the most prepackaged version because the previous experience that guest has had through the initial portion of the interview is morphing and sculpting and manipulating and mashing up that answer. So maybe they're a little more apt to be creative or say something that is slightly unexpected and hopefully a little more introspective than would have normally been the case. So how does this apply to your business? I think too often we go into conversations with potential clients, with current clients, with staff, with vendors or partners, with peers, with referral partners. We go in and we already have the conversation mapped out in our head, right? I want this person to get to this point. I want them to say they're going to send me every referral. And yes, if you're in business, you have to get to certain points in order to actually make money, right? You have to get people to make certain commitments to you. But my belief is that you can build much more fruitful relationships that have real depth, that have trust and respect and loyalty, if you think of those conversations as more like an adventure than a walk around your neighborhood, right? Like, you get the choice to walk out the back door of your house into the woods or the front door and do a lap around the sidewalk. And I think that while the standardized templated answer, the corporate, here's your playbook answer is go out the front door and do 5 laps around the neighborhood and you'll know exactly where you are, right? Like that is a very safe way to go. And I think you can deliver value that way and you can get to a place that works for your business. But 1, it's not a lot of fun. And 2, it's exactly what everyone expects. And though consistency and meeting expectations are a large part of building trust and respect, they're lacking the feeling of shared experience, of shared struggle, of shared give and take, of true communication, of feeling like someone is really being heard instead of just pushed down a path. And when we approach a conversation more as an adventure, like I'm going to walk into the woods and maybe I'll find a a babbling brook, or maybe I'll find a nice grassy knoll, or maybe I'll find a really cool tree that was struck by lightning, or whatever, right? Maybe I won't find anything and I'll just eventually turn around and come back. That style of conversation to me holds a lot more value, because you could go into a conversation with a referral partner assuming that they can deliver X when really they could deliver, say, 10X. But if you only go in with a set standard process that gets you to X, all you're going to get is X. Where if you take the other path and you weave your way through a conversation by listening to that person and asking them questions and working through the places that they actually want to go, you may uncover that they have 10X and are willing to give you 10X, or that they really have Y, something that you want even more that you didn't even know they had, because you went into that conversation with an open mind, always with professionalism, and with, you're not just like having a random chat about your favorite sports team and then leaving. Like, you're going in with a purpose for sure, but understand that conversation should feel more organic. It should feel very much like you're trying to find a place where there is, I don't want to call it a win-win because that's silly, where there is mutual value received by both parties, and that you are finding the best solution for your organization and the best solution for theirs, if possible and as possible. So to me, the interviews that I do for the podcast are practice for the business conversations that I have that actually make me money. I don't make any money on the podcast. I don't have a Patreon page. There's no paid content wall. It's free for you. I do it because I love you guys and I want to add value to you. And as much as I have access to certain individuals that I can get to come and talk to me, I get to share their expertise with you. And that's why I love it. But at the same time, I have to feed my family. I live in a house. I have bills. I have kids. They're expensive as hell. Most of you know that, right? Or at least if you don't have kids, you're aware that they're expensive. So my point in saying this all to you is I hope that you will address more conversations in your life as an adventure than just a walk around the block. I think you'll be very happy with what you find. You'll feel more fulfilled. Your conversation partner will trust and respect you more and have more loyalty, and they'll possibly look forward to your next conversation and not dread it as something they just have to tick off their schedule. So there's a right way and a wrong way to work through a conversation. And I would advise you that the wrong way is the path that everyone expects. What do you think about this? Like, am I completely crazy? And is this just fluffy, nonsensical consulting speaker BS that is easy to spout into a camera but doesn't actually make any sense in the real world? Or do you buy into this? Because it's honestly what I believe, and it's how I operate my life. It's how I sell things. If you've ever bought something from me, then you're probably aware that this is how I do it. And it's worked very well for me. If you have conversations, if you have questions about how to do this, let me know. Maybe I can put together like a little video series or something, or whatever. Leave your comments in the questions, or your questions in the comments below this video. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do hit the little bell thing too. That way you get notified of when I produce new videos. I love you for subscribing to this newsletter. This is something I really enjoy. I hope you enjoy this format as well. Tell your friends about it. Have a wonderful day. Go Bills! Peace!